Welcome to the NEPA Scene Podcast. We're coming to you live from Cole Creative in downtown Wilkes-Barre. I'm Rich Howells. I'm the founder and editor of NEPA Scene.
I'm John Popko, back from paternity leave again for the second time. And I work for Rock 107, ESPN Radio, and Alt 92.1, and I am the Saturday night host of Alt Natives on Alt 92.1 at 9 o'clock.
It's good to have you back, John. And now we've lost Brittany.
Was she ever back? Was she back?
She was kind of back. Not last week, but the week before.
I'm back.
Yeah. We're constantly rotating hosts. But
the only constant is Rich Howells.
Yes.
But he is the founder and editor. He needs to be here.
I pretty much have to be here at all times. Yeah. But every once in a while, I let you kids take over. So tonight, we're here with the new Vintage Ensemble members, Casey Thomas and Kimmie Leff, who wrote and star in #vanlife, which is a show about the millennial van life trend that premiered at the Scranton Fringe Festival last year and comes to the Cooperage in Honesdale on March 2nd and 3rd. So we're going to talk about acting and directing in local theater, arts funding, this particular show, and much, much more. So please tune in. Stay tuned in for the full hour. Leave your questions and comments down below. For us, for them, whatever you want to talk about, and we'll get to those later in the show. I also have some questions for you guys that I would like you to answer as well throughout the show. So I will shoot those to you, and by all means, you can respond in kind. We will get to them at some point and read them back and respond. So now, if you're watching this live, there's also a share button underneath there too, and we would love for you to click that and tell your friends that you're watching this. So I wanted to take a moment to mention this, kind of mention it briefly on some of the previous shows. But do you guys remember over the last few months, there was a lot of people sharing, very gullible friends, sharing that stupid copy and paste hoax that Facebook is limiting your news feed to only 26 friends, and you better respond or comment to this post, otherwise no one is you're never going to show up in my feed again, and I'm never going to hear from you. Well, that is not true. You can look it up on Snopes or whatever you'd like, but if you Google it, you'll find that it's not true, pretty much like anything else that people copy and paste on Facebook. But it is true, actually, for Facebook pages. Facebook thinks that you want to see more racist rants from your drunk uncle, or more people fighting over the gun control debate than they do the pages that you like. So pages like us that you obviously like because you're watching this, or other pages on the internet, whether they're your news, your favorite bands, celebrities, movies, brands, whatever, they're all struggling to reach you right now because Facebook is severely limiting how many people see those posts. And the obvious reason for that is extortion. They want to get money out of you to pay for every single post, which we post several times a day. So financially, that's just stupidly impossible. If the big guys aren't doing it, we certainly can't afford to do it. So really, really rely on you guys to get the word out about that. And I know I've said that 100 times, and it's easy to just say, yeah, I will, and dismiss that. But you might have noticed, too, that you don't get notifications anymore when we go live on Facebook. You used to send those out to everybody. Now they don't really send those out anymore. So you kind of have to know that we're here every Wednesday, 7 to 8 on Facebook Live. If you don't know that and you haven't seen that, you wouldn't know that the show exists a lot of times unless you go to our website on a regular basis. So whenever you see those things pop up, please like them, please share them. To guarantee that you see that content, you can also go to a tab on our Facebook page that says following. And when we click on that, you hit see first. And that way, every time we post something, no matter what it is, you will see it first in your news feed the next time that you refresh it. So that's a way to guarantee it. There's also a notifications button that you can click on, and that'll let you know that we're live or that we're doing something. There's also little 3 dots up on this very post on Facebook. You can click on those as well. If you're watching on the desktop version or wherever, if you're watching this later after the live feed, you can click on that, and that way you can get notifications. So there's lots of ways to do it, except Facebook hides it all. So we really want you to be able to see our show and continue to do what we do. I will say that surprisingly, our web traffic has been really good and kind of weathered this whole thing. So we still have a steady stream of people that pay attention and like and comment. But a lot of times that used to be enough, and now it requires much more and much more. And Facebook is continuing to do that. And sooner or later, we might be banished to another tab because they're already testing that idea, where you can only see your friends' posts and what they share, and then in a separate tab that you have to click over for, you'll see all the other stuff. That could be a possibility in the future. We hope that doesn't happen, but if it does, keep that in mind. So for independent publishers like us, we appreciate your support. So thank you all for tuning in tonight.
Long story short, share this video and stop sharing the fucking conspiracy theorist bullshit.
Yes, please stop sharing that stuff. Pictures of random people and saying that they're all like, I'm sorry, but children are dead. Okay,
Yeah.
let's not try to trivialize that in any way. At the end of the day, no matter how you feel about gun control, stop sharing that crap. So before we get to into the interview, we have some beers that will maybe take the edge off right now.
Yeah.
From Beer Boys in Wilkes-Barre. Now they have 72 beers on tap, plenty from Pennsylvania breweries, including some of the ones we have here tonight. So what are we drinking, John?
We have from North Slope, which is in Dallas. It's the Orange Crush, which sounds awesome. Berwick, also local, dry hopped IPA. And I think he knew it was hot out today and sent us SBC Shady Spot, which is the lemon shandy. Also local. So
That's a great one.
Shanty? Is that what you said?
no, it's the
It's a
summer shandy.
Summer
Summer
shandy.
Shanty.
Well, it's a lemon shandy.
Yeah.
The summer shandy is the line of Kugel, I think, whatever. But
Yes, you promised us beer.
Which one you want to start with?
The IPA, I think. What was the second one you
we
said?
get hopped up here.
Hopped
All
up.
right.
Let's get hopped up.
Dry hopped IPA.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah, that sounds up my alley.
Well,
Yeah.
if you're a craft beer guy, this is the place to go.
And where is it again? Beer Boys, you say?
Beer Boys.
North Washington Street in Wilkes-Barre, a block away or 2
Yeah.
blocks away from here.
Yeah, about 2 blocks.
Right down the street.
72 taps on keg. Just making a mental note.
Yep,
Hotels in Wilkes-Barre. Thank you, sir.
absolutely.
And thank you for having us, by the way.
Oh, you're very welcome.
On that note, while we get beered up, we appreciated all the sharing of our pictures and our media and things like that, especially before we head into Honesdale to do our show. It was a nice push of exposure for us, so we appreciate that.
Yeah, we ran the press release about a week ago, so if you want to know more about the show, we just reposted that yesterday on Facebook. If you want to scroll down a little bit, you'll be able to see it there.
Top yourself off.
Because it probably didn't end up in your feed. So if you want to find out more about it, it must be more of a struggle for guys like you trying to get your word out about what you're doing.
Yeah,
as well.
absolutely. I mean, you run into the same things that you're discussing. I mean, either way, just getting caught up in the midst of a bunch of nonsense anyway. Because, I mean,
Sure.
as far as the way I post, I just post things to my personal page or I share things because I'm not very good at self-promotion. So all my, shameless plugs get lost in the fever pitch of everything that's going on now. So it's,
Sure.
It's becoming increasingly difficult to compete with all the other noise,
And it's not to say that those things aren't worth discussing. I just don't know if arguing with your friend on Facebook is really going to change any minds or if it make any real effect in the real world. I think what some of the kids are doing now in reaction to that is commendable
Right.
and is actually at least starting a real discussion about legislation and things like that. Sharing memes is not going to do that.
No.
But there are so many people doing really good things, and I think it kind of gets lost in the shuffle.
Right,
Unfortunately.
because it's so easy to just like something or to have a quick, 5-line rant on Facebook and then say, I participated in this, situation. It's not really
Right.
much of an effort you're putting forth. You're just, it's not the same as actually going out and doing something that's tangible where you can see the results and...
Yep.
Or just keep your mouth shut and stay out of it. Otherwise, which is
Especially if you're not informed. That's
Right.
really the main thing. Is
Most important,
Be
yeah.
informed about what you're sharing.
I saw some of the rallies today, and I told you earlier. I think it's great what the kids are doing, but
Right.
they also need to educate themselves on what the hell they're talking about because when they're getting asked
And
questions,
so they're not getting. Yeah, you have a camera.
hey, so
in
what
your
do you think
face
about this?
and-
And, yeah, like a lot of guns and stuff. Like it's like, god damn.
Yeah, not you gotta pick a representative who's well spoken and put them in front of the camera. But you know what? There's a lot of stuff today too. You know, a lot of the media sites and channels and everything else give into that clickbait sort of crap as well, where they're looking for that person.
Right, that's what they're working.
That you know they want somebody who's not informed, so they can go, see, look, they don't know what they're talking about, and it's like, well, yeah, you found one person in the crowd. Of course, you're always gonna find that person that doesn't represent the rest of it, you know, everybody, or you know, isn't well spoken. You know, it's very easy to do that.
But a lot of times, the person who's willing to stand up and act as the the representative is not the person necessarily who has all the eloquence and the information, and but they have the willingness and the wantingness to. Because a lot of times people shy away from the forefront of
that's true.
That's a good point.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, hey, if you're willing to do it, that's half the battle, and then knowing what you're doing is the other half. Right. Okay. That makes sense.
So we want to plug our other sponsor, the V Spot, before we really get into the conversation. They have one of the most popular bars in northeastern Pennsylvania, live entertainment every night of the week. This week they have Ken Norton from Grace's Downfall, who
I went to school
on the show before.
Mr. Ken Norton.
Yeah.
Bomb.
Well, he's there tonight, so
let's go get him.
So if you want after the show, if you want to go down. Angelina is Thursday, very talented, great voice. Three Imaginary Boys is Friday, who we actually shot recently at Jim Thorpe when they were playing with Ed Randazzo.
They are not bums.
They are not bums.
Yeah, there are no bums in Jim Thorpe anyway. Period.
Well, they're from here.
Right, but at any point.
Right. That 90s band is Saturday, which is the last time you'll know them as that 90s band before they change their name until Sunrise.
Do you know why they're doing that?
I would think it's because they probably want to do other stuff other than, you're kind of stuck with the name, like, okay, we have to do 90s tunes.
Yeah, backing yourself in the corner there, huh?
Right. You can only do so much. So yeah, but they are changing their name. So but you can catch them on Saturday, and karaoke is Sunday at DJ Huff. So and our open mic and talent contest will be coming back next month to the V Spot at the end of March. That should be a lot of fun. I want your opinion on this. Anybody who's watching, anybody who's a local artist or anything like that, whether you're going to go or not, what kind of prizes do you think would be good? Because we usually have the same type of thing. We have a cash prize, usually some recording studio time.
That's great.
And, a couple other things as well. What would you like to see? Is there anything that you think is more valuable than those things? Usually the artists are pretty happy with that.
Yeah, I was going to say that sounds, pretty
Did you
ideal.
was the comedic biking?
Yes.
Because I remember seeing him alive.
Yeah.
And with all the noise, it was hard to kind of hear what he's doing. But I just saw this guy in the Viking getup. And then when I was doing another show, we were on WBRE Live, and I'm going into Wilkes-Barre into the studio, and there's this guy in his Viking costume. I'm like, well, it's Wilkes-Barre. And then he came into the studio, and I was like, this is interesting. And then, I didn't realize. It's familiar.
It's funny because he's, I think a lot of people are like, is he nuts or is he, what is this? What is the thing that he's doing? Once you see the act and you get to know him, he's a wonderful guy. He's like a big teddy bear. He's a really funny guy, really smart too. And the whole bit is very clever, but I think people are just like, whoa, what is this? Like this guy's walking around with swords and stuff like that.
It gets your attention, but you're kind of like, it's Wilkes-Barre.
You used to do the was that somewhere else? The open mic?
Yeah, we've done a couple different places.
Right.
So we started at the Woodlands, then we did it at Thirsties for a little while. Now we're at the V Spot.
I've been thinking about trying to write a comedy set, and I've started it, and I have some bits and pieces.
Yeah.
And I had a chance to work some of those out a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, and I sort of bailed on the opportunity because I got cold feet, and I was like, I'm not ready. I'm just not ready yet.
Yeah.
But that might be a good place to try it out.
We've gotten a lot of people that have started at our open mic, or at least tested out the waters and stuff like that. And there's a lot of great comedians that show up that can always help you with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
They'll give you that honest feedback if you want
advice. I need feedback. I need that initial toe in the water. I just need to rip the Band-Aid off and do it. But
That's why he wrote this play.
That's the play.
Yeah, but
He did go to Story Slam.
Yes, but see, I wasn't asked to. That was all spontaneity, so it worked out all right. But
yeah.
Being a storyteller and being a comedian are sort of two different things.
Right.
But
also, the same.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
there
in a
are
lot of ways.
If you
similarities.
could paint that picture and do that foundation, and then kind of wrap it up with a little punchline.
Right. I mean, yeah, you have to. I'll try it out. Open mic, I will.
You
And
should.
I would appreciate a cash prize and some studio time if you don't mind.
Okay. All right. So the first bit of feedback, but please let us know what you think. We would love to be able to serve you guys in the best way possible, and so we want to give you stuff that you think is valuable. So I mean, everybody values cash in some form or another, especially starving artists. But we want to offer other stuff as well. Do you want a vacation? I mean, what do you want?
Do you offer for the people that do perform if they ask like any kind of feedback or?
Oh yeah. We definitely help with that, and try to help people improve, and a lot of times too. Thomas the Red, as we mentioned before, is a great example of that. When he first came to the open mic, when we were doing it at Thirsty's a couple of years ago, he didn't do the whole Viking thing. He just did a regular comedy bit. It was just stuff that he had written for a long time and just kind of worked up the courage to do. And then he became friends with the other comedians, and they started to kind of help him
So they
find his
created
way
that
and stuff
monster?
like that. Yeah,
Like,
essentially,
I got a shield
yeah.
and a sword, try it out.
And that's essentially, he started it because of that. He got the encouragement that he needed to continue to do it. And then when he came back a few months later, he was in this getup, and I'm like, what are you doing? And then
They told me to do it. They cultivated me.
It'd be great if like, he lost a bet and just had to do it.
That's how things
then it
like that
worked.
happen. It just
it worked out really well.
all of a sudden you have a sturdy, lifelong career as a man in a Viking costume. I heard about him. I've never met him, but I'm
He's
hearing
very
about him
nice,
now.
Yeah, exactly. So and it's cool. We've helped a lot of artists like that get started, or at least get their names out there and stuff, and then other people will pick them up. One of the best things that I think come out of the whole thing that is not necessarily a prize, but I think should be valued even more than the prize is we get a lot of people gigs.
Absolutely.
They'll see the live feed and go, oh, I want to book this guy,
Right.
or they even if they don't win the grand prize, it doesn't matter.
I know
The
so many
publicity and
comedians
everything
locally, and how it's so difficult to try and get started locally, especially in a place like Scranton. And I know
Right.
a pretty healthy amount of comedians that are local, and that's how they survive. Just bouncing around little places here and there, and it's tough. So it's good that we have that.
A few people that were actually in the whole last season that came week after week, a lot of them ended up getting booked at not only the V Spot but other places as well. So it's something that leads to other opportunities. So I encourage people to come out to
You
that.
never know who's there. Just
I
grab
think
a
my
drink.
favorite story
Exactly.
is just seeing kids go up there for the first time. You can hear their knees smashing on each other. They're so
Right.
scared and they're like shaking.
Yeah.
And then like by week 10 or whatever, that's like they've been doing this for 5 years.
Well, that's what they say about, especially comedy. It's one of the things that the best stuff is born from failure. So if you don't get up there and initially bomb and make an ass out of yourself, then you don't, get that great material in the end.
Right.
So essentially, you have to make a complete and total ass of yourself in order to then become, refined and
It was like the
and know it works.
used Edison light bulb thing. Like he had what was like 5,000 ways how not to make a light bulb before he
Well, yeah,
found the light bulb.
Yeah.
You have to know what not to do.
and make 4,999 mistakes, or at least 5,000 mistakes. But
Whatever. I know, I saw it on Facebook. So.
it's not real. What did we just say?
I just shared it. Whatever.
So, speaking of getting into, your respective interests and trying things out and stuff like that, how did you guys get into theater? What was the impetus there?
For me, it wasn't sports. When after I graduated college, not a very good neat band. I didn't really care for the bar scene. I was spending a lot of time at work, so I'm like, I need something to do. And I wasn't good at sports, but I liked drama, so just started to get involved in some theater and helping out here and there, and did a murder mystery, and I was like,
A murder mystery. Oh no. Oh god. It's like the bane of every local actor's existence.
But I was tricked. It was like, no, you're gonna get a script, and then it was like weeks went by and there was no script, and we're like, so hey, it's like, I don't know, it's just a character description. Okay, but what about we're gonna say it's like, yeah, improv.
That's how. For those of you that don't know, there's dinner theater. There's murder mysteries. For all you young people out there watching that may want to try to get into local theater or, big theater or paid work, stay the fuck away from dinner theater and murder mysteries. And if Actors Circle calls you, I love them people. No, that's.
But no, that's how van life got started.
That's true. We'll get back to that later.
That's where Shock and Cheeks came from.
Yeah, I've been doing theater for most of my life. It's what I've usually always gravitated towards from a young age. And then I moved away and did it professionally, and I came back I moved away and did TV and film. And then when I came back, I got back into theater, which is the most fun. So for the past 6 or 7 years or so, I've been really wrapped up in the local arts and much to speak to what you were saying, mostly to stay out of trouble, to keep busy at night. I work during the day, and then I have the theater, which is most important to me, but it's basically become a way to sort of keep myself busy in a constructive way and stay sane. But yeah, I've done it for most of my life, if not all of my life, I guess, at this point. Yeah, pretty much all of my life.
That's how we met.
Yeah, we did. We met on the stage at West Scranton High School where Rich Howells had the lead production in My Fair Lady.
Yes.
Henry Higgins. And Rich had a beard at that point, too.
What?
He had a coif of blonde hair.
I did have very nice hair.
Are there pictures of this?
There's a video, actually.
Oh, we can't do it live. We would, say it, and then later on, when you're editing it, we could say, plug in a picture, but I'll find a way to make that happen. But yeah, Rich.
Post it later. Fine, that's.
But we met doing theater. So it just goes to show, that was,
I would not be able to talk in front of you people today if it not for local theater.
Well, did you take drama class too? Weren't you in?
Yeah. I took the classes all 4 years in high school.
With Annette Paludis?
Yes.
Who's still doing wonderfully, by the way, if she's out there in Facebook land. I saw her not too long ago.
I haven't run into her in a long time.
She's still the same. Still very much the same.
That's awesome.
But yeah. And then you continued on. This is pretty much the same thing what you're doing is shooting from the cup.
It was a slightly different, I wanted to do theater, and then I was like, well, I kind of like writing, and maybe I like that a little bit more, so I kind of pursued that more in college and kind of dropped off of the theater. I always wanted to get back into it at some point.
I know you. So. I remember you saying something about that when we last spoke of it. So
yeah. At some point.
You've flirted with the idea twice now. So
I have.
Say it.
Yeah, maybe if I say it publicly enough, I'll get pushed into it.
But writing is much more, it's much more from the inside out, and it's much more, I would say, difficult and self-critiquing, if that's, grammatically correct. So you might have a better time doing theater than writing. At least when I write, I beat myself up over the stuff because I don't consider myself a writer, but when put in that situation where they're like, oh, all right, I have to write.
You guys wrote this show,
yeah. And
so what was that process painful as well?
Well, Kimmie, it was born out of. Go ahead, tell the story, Kimmie.
Casey and I have been kind of bumping each other, but palling around through New Vintage Ensemble is how we met. Through Pride and Prejudice, which I love that you had to be convinced to do.
Yeah, of course.
And
as all great things.
This who wrote it? What was her name? Jane Austen. Tell me more about this Jane Austen character.
And I was no, every guy in community theater will kill to play this part. Oh, well then I'll do it.
But we did do a show not too long ago, last year. Community theater is very much like living in a Christopher Guest movie. It really is. There's this really wonderful absurdity about it that you can't deny.
Noises Up.
Right.
It's a very accurate depiction.
It's so silly that you find yourself in this circumstance where it's she's not really an actress. She's a teacher, and he's a construction worker, and he's a volunteer fireman. But at night we get together and we do plays for the community. But so there's something really absurd about it. So Kimmie and I found ourselves a year or so more ago doing a show and being really sick of it and looking at each other like, this sucks, this is horrible. And then deciding to write a show from scratch for the Fringe Festival to sort of take it into our own hands and say, all right, well, if we're constantly annoyed by what's being produced by other people, then, you know, we owe it to ourselves to test our own capabilities and you know, make something of our own to work on.
It was kind of one of those things of like wanting, you know, more, and realizing that with some groups, like, you know, the resources are limited, the timing is limited, you know, other people are being stretched between, you know, everyday like life happening, and so yeah, it kind of became one of those things of like, you know, if you think you know how to direct a play, then you should direct, and you know. So yeah, it was kind of those moments of like, you know, we wanting more or wanting different things or seeing maybe how stuff wasn't kind of working and being like, all right, it's time to
if you're gonna bitch about it,
right?
You know, see if you could actually do it yourself, or basically just being in charge of our own project was the most important thing, and not having to answer to people or to do it for this reason or that reason, but to just, you know, and then if it all fucking sucked, we had no one to blame but ourselves. We couldn't look at each other and be like, yeah, this is horrible.
And that's what's great about the Fringe, was it was a very safe, I mean, as safe as you can get, kind of, for really just putting yourself out there. Like, I had never written anything or kind of created something from scratch. Like I always say, I am decent with other people's words and I am terrible with my own. So that was, you know, it was as safe as you can get kind of environment to, because it was only about an hour.
Right.
It was minimal set because you didn't know like where you're going to be, what kind of tech you're going to have, so it did constrain you from what you were able to do. I'm like, all right, that's good.
Yeah, like you couldn't get too wild with your idea when we were trying to, you know, like thinking of a show and all that, because you were working within these sort of squeezed parameters. Like there was already a format, you know, we couldn't go over a certain time. And the good thing about the Fringe Festival is it's already a place where people go to try out their you know, much the same as with an open mic night almost. You know, these people are trying out their work. It's the whole idea of a Fringe Festival came from shows that, you know, they weren't commercial, they weren't necessarily what you might consider automatically successful, but people still wanted to perform them. So it was low risk, hopefully high reward. So it was the perfect place to sort of stretch out as amateur writers. And
that was kind of the thing too, is that Casey had tacked and worked behind the scenes with Fringe for the previous 2 years, and I observed, like I went to see a lot of shows, so we had, I think, different perspectives of the Fringe, like not having shows directly involved or doing a show in it. Like we saw a lot of, like he's not from the tech perspective, like nope, we can't do this, or we gotta keep it this way, or issues that they ran into. And from as an audience perspective, I saw, well, it's got to have this element, or it's got to have this, or this is what drew people in, versus this was an interesting idea, but for as new as it is to Scranton, like people want to go, people want to laugh, people want to be entertained, slip in, you know, if you want a deeper message in there. So we had, I think, an interesting mishmashing of perspectives.
That's true.
Going into it as well, and
Now, what made you want to pick this topic? For those who maybe aren't familiar, what is #vanlife? Like this is a whole thing. If you Google it, it's a deep hole to go down.
For real, yeah.
It's very interesting.
I had started out a couple of years ago, maybe not even a couple of years ago, but in the pretty recent past, I started watching things about the tiny living movement. Which to me I love.
This is a part of. Vanlife is a part of the tiny living movement.
Yeah, vanlife is sort of an offshoot of the tiny living movement. They've gotten tinier. But I got really involved in the tiny living movement as far as falling down rabbit holes on YouTube and things like that. And that
Right.
super charming way of life, but you knew under the surface it was like, they're fucking lying. These people are miserable. And then once you start watching more videos, or, I found the van life, which was an offshoot of tiny living, where people took it one step further and they lived full time in their vans.
Yeah.
And then they did start coming out. You watch them crumble. Their first hopeful video, because they sort of had this idealistic notion of what it was based on all these cool pictures they saw on Instagram. They're like, yeah, we're going to go out, live in our van, we're going to work from our computers. And then, by the 5th or 6th video, you could see the wear and tear on their faces. And then it just sort of got me thinking about this lifestyle. I always think of it in the Christopher Guest sort of manner, where it's like a mockumentary sort of glimpse into this weird, niche sort of lifestyle. So I started thinking of the van life, I need to do something with this, or there's potential here, or there's something, just kept it in the back of my mind. And then,
Right.
And then when Kimmie and I got together and, pretty much decided on writing something together and performing something together, I threw the idea of the van life out there, and then we just started throwing things together. And the one constant was the van, was always the backdrop of the story, would always be the van. So the van stayed, and van life is pretty much a millennial movement. It's a half-assed hipster answer to hard problems. When life gets too hard and your college degree is useless, find a VW van, bus, and a sleeping bag, and a camera phone, and the potential's endless, apparently. But look it up, yeah. Van life, tiny living. It's really funny.
The videos are funny too, because I saw from the other perspective, a lot of videos that I saw were people that were trying, you could tell they got on it late, and they were really trying to, okay, this is the framework. And there was this guy who was living in a van, but he had a good job, and he decided, I don't need an apartment, I'm gonna do this van, and then making mountains out of molehills, just to have something to talk about, or to make it seem like it's the end of the world. And it's 20 minutes of him at his job using their conference room to be all right, I need to know where to park my van.
Yeah.
He's I work in this vicinity. And he's just drawing these big circles. And he's just all right, so this is a sweet spot. He was, guys.
Yeah, he was looking for help.
You gotta help me out. I don't know where to park my van. Because work won't let me anymore.
Yeah, the work stopped
letting them.
Yeah.
I think I saw that.
I become a liability. Yeah. Well, these are the problems that the people face on a day-to-day basis. But the best thing about it, they all universally love it. They've gained something from it that they're you know what? So after 2 months of slumming it, horrible, they're I'm getting used to it. I don't mind this this lifestyle, and they really do sacrifice everything, and they end up being okay with it. So they're getting something from it. They're getting something from dumping their, their rent and their, 400 and some square feet of bliss for stealth camping in Walmart, and the thing also about the show is there's a lot of social commentary that we could fit into there, because it speaks a lot to social media. It speaks a lot to this filtered story, filtered Snapchat story or Instagram story that we've sort of start creating for ourselves to build an image, and how fraudulent that actually is. So there are so many different other messages that we've sort of wrung from the idea of the tiny living movement.
So you are telling me, though, that they do this and eventually they kind of fall apart? Because I was talking to Rich, and I'm my mind is I have a love-hate for these people. And it's because I love them because, you know what, good for you. You're saying fuck it, fuck the 9 to 5, and fuck,
it's a big commitment.
Yeah,
it's
but
$1,000.
I don't know how old you guys are, but I was raised, go to high school, get good grades, get into college, get good grades, get that 9 to 5 job, get the health benefits, get the house, the white picket fence, all that
The
fucking
job you're at till
bullshit.
you retire.
All that bullshit. It doesn't exist now.
No,
No, because
it doesn't.
Because, the job you have for 30 years and you retire and everything's fucking great. It doesn't exist. People oftentimes have 5, 6 jobs, all that kind of shit.
It's the side hustle.
Yeah,
Sure.
exactly. And it's like looking back on, how I, how my path was. It's like, I kind of wish I had more like that free mindset, but I followed all the rules. I never got in trouble. Well, I never got caught. But, but like I did, I played the game, and now it's like, fuck, like did I waste, like did I miss out on some stuff? So I'm like, that's really cool that they could do that and just say fuck it, like. But at the end of the day too, it's like when you're 80 years old or 70 years old, like what do you have outside of these pictures for the internet and pictures on your phone and the memories? Like, well, what do you have? Like, granted, I followed the rules. I own a home. I have all that stuff. So at the end of the day, I have like something tangible, so to speak.
Yeah.
Is it worth anything? I don't know. To me, I guess it is. Whatever. But it's so I have this love-hate thing for them.
It's kind of one of the things that we talk about in van life, like where we talk about you're paying for a house and for stuff that you're never in and you never liked or whatever,
Right.
And you're kind
Well,
of stuck in
that's also the thing about the van. There doesn't seem to be much planning that goes on with it. So, I mean, when they say like we're gonna go live in the van full time, I can't imagine them going any further than a year or 2 of this life. It's just sort of, it's like saying, oh, I backpacked through Europe and I learned a thing or 2 about myself. I sowed my wild oats. I think these people are just sort of saying chuck it for the time being, but you couldn't sustain a full life.
That's amazing because they spend so. I mean, they get rid of everything.
Yeah.
And they spend so much time because with the one that sticks in my head is just this couple. They met and it was like 3 months later they were living together and it was a small apartment and then they decided like let's do the van thing. And they got a van for a couple of $1,000s, and while they were renovating it to make it, because they're so customized. It's not like the 60s where like, hey, let's go cross country and sing on the roadside and, whatever the car is set up, like the van is set up, like these are like RV customized deals. And they spent a couple $1,000s to renovate it. Caught fire.
Oh yeah, I saw that when they had to restart it.
So they spent like $5,000.
Then they show a quick.
And it was completely ruined. So then they bought like a $10,000 already kind of equipped van, and then spent more money to customize.
But how about that? I remember watching, and they're like, we had a van fire, and they cut to a quick picture of like aftermath, which was like a scarred, hollow, post-apocalyptic looking van. And they're like, but this time we just bought it already done because they already wasted all their energy renovating that.
Yeah. Oh man.
Oh.
It was just like.
So yeah, what really ends up happening is like watching a relationship deteriorate. Mm-hmm. And that's what was sort of important with van life is we don't play a couple. I'm an over-the-top, flamboyantly gay, southern the characters couldn't be any more juxtaposed. And we sort of did that, I mean, for a reason. We're 2 friends on the road as opposed to a couple. A lot of times you'll find it's couples that do this together, and
they hate each other after.
Right. It seemed more logical, or there was more fruit to pick between a friendly relationship that, they could. Well,
it's kind of like the relationship where your emotional needs are met, and it's kind of like, it's a relationship, but there's not a sexual element. You can't like they said the bromance or girlfriends and stuff like that, like where those emotional needs are met, where you go to that person for everything and then you go off and have fun.
Right. Well, we address that in van life, like what we do for sex or what may be done for sex or what could happen, like what would you do. But it was important to keep that relationship platonic because I didn't really feel like exploring the intimate relationship on the road. I think that would be an entirely different show altogether. But yeah, even still, it's a work in progress. We rehearsed tonight, and as we were going through it, my eyebrows raising a little bit in certain areas where it's still a work in progress, and we're kind of hitting the road with the show now. So we're learning as we go, much the same as I was saying earlier with the comedians. I mean, we're sort of learning as we go. And,
yeah, we had like a whole set that we like completely scrapped.
well, I mean, it's sort of, I guess, part of the process. So you can't really refine your work until you put it to the test. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's what we're doing now. Just pretty much hitting the road and trying different things in between and seeing what audiences like and what they don't like and
that was surprising for me was because we were in this like isolated bubble from when we submitted and then there's a wait. And then when we got accepted, it was like...
Into the Fringe Festival.
Into the Fringe Festival last year. So it was like when we got our acceptance in May, it was like, oh, holy shit, now we have to do this. Like there was a part of me in the back of my mind that
we
was
pretended like we had a full
don't accept us, because then I don't have to worry about it. And it'll take the load off. And I'm like, kind of disappointed. But...
You mean I have to write it now?
And then when I was like, did you read our proposal? Like, we didn't know what we were doing. But yeah, and then there was like this nice little bubble that we were in, and we just amused ourselves so much from like May to like the end of September, and this little bubble of creating it and that, and then like
well, you don't know
coming out to the wire, we're like, holy shit, like, we don't know
if people are gonna like it.
Respond to it, people are gonna come, and then there was that part that just didn't even care.
Yeah.
Because it was just really exciting about
there was
just doing it, and because we've all had those shows that you have so much fun doing it, where like if one person shows up, great, just because you want to do it. Like for Reindeer Monologues, the first time that I did that, it was an elephant, and then it was like a snowstorm, and like 2 people came, and we're like, yes, 2 people, we get to do it, because we just as a cast,
the audience, so if the audience outnumbers the cast, you're okay. That's like the general rule of thumb. I mean, there's 6 of us, there's 8 of them. Oh, it's all worth it. Okay. But yeah, I mean, there was that nice little bubble that you and I were in, where we were just blissfully sort of entertaining each other, and not really thinking about how people would respond to it, and then to, because during that whole process, you're not sure if what you're doing is even worth continuing to do. So it was nice during the Fringe Festival, those 3 nights. The audiences had a great time. I mean, they really did, and it felt good to get that feedback after all that time spent just wondering.
Mm-hmm. It's really a leap of faith, and then like for us, like not knowing, because it's an out of order, crazy ride. Like we give people the experience of like the craziness of going from like, okay, it's this nice rosy world, and here's how we're gonna start off, and the minute something goes wrong, the reality, the veil lifting, and
you wonder if people are gonna follow you, like follow what you're trying to say. Especially, it is out of order somewhat. The show is sort of cut up and bounced around in a certain way, and it was hard to know, and it's still hard to know. I'm still questioning, like, does this make sense? Is this I mean, I guess time will tell. It's still it's still a work in progress. It really is. It's still
Yeah, we are renovating it from.
Yeah.
So you saw it at Scranton Fringe.
Yeah, if you saw it at the Fringe.
Come to Cooperage, because it's going to be different.
Right.
And let us know if you like the changes.
Cheers to that.
Absolutely.
And it's time else on nice chest and platform. I'm good. I'm driving.
Oh, okay.
I'm driving the vans.
Is it the van that you guys live in? In van life?
Oh my God.
It's a mini Countryman.
It's really funny because Kimmie actually drives a Mini Cooper in real life, which
He's got a lot of room though.
It's not practical for.
If it was just me and I ditched your ass,
Huh.
that'd be fine.
No one in their right mind could ever live in a Mini Cooper. That's sleeping in the passenger seat with your legs up in the back corner of the back window. Thank you, Rich.
And that was the SBC Shady Spot,
which is
the lemon shade.
Quite good.
It is good. It's
It's
nice
great
little-
for today.
Yeah. Well, live it up while you still can, because it's going to be cold the rest of the week.
Yeah, the mid-30s tomorrow, and then it's
Yeah.
gonna get warm again. Come Sunday and Monday.
Go up and down now for a while. Elizabeth Bohan, who is a co-founder of the Fringe Festival, said, we read your proposal and it was very fringy.
Oh, well, define fringy.
Very loose.
But so is it going to change at all now with the Cooperage show? Have you ever done a show there before? What is that space like? Because I think a lot of people might not even know that the Cooperage exists. It's a very interesting little space. Could you talk a little bit about that?
I mean, Honesdale is such a wonderful little town. Not necessarily little, but it's so cute, and it has like a lot of mom and pop stores. There's a lot of consignment, but then there's more progressive. The Cooperage is a really great spot. It's a really like people that just want to do stuff for the community. It basically is like a community center. They have game nights there. They have open mic. They have music. They have discussions come in. They're a potpourri of everything. And 3 years ago, after we did Hamlet, they somebody from there saw it and really liked it, and then approached New Vintage Ensemble to say, hey, we don't really have a theater presence in Honesdale, and it's something that we would like to kind of start to cultivate. So they wrote a grant, they got the grant, and then partnership with us to do 2 productions there. And I did I saved my directorial debut, because Reindeer Monologues was monologues. And that really is set in that. So I did the Fourth Wall, A.R. Gurney's Fourth Wall up there, and they were so nice. It's a great space.
And we were just there a few days ago, checking in, and I was seeing the space for the first time, and the girl there who runs their marketing, Ryan, she said now that since the new Vintage started doing things at the Cooperage, they've seen it an interest peaked.
They've had more and more theater productions from different other communities coming in, and
but it's a really neat space. It's hard to really pinpoint what it is, but that does sum it up nicely. Like just a really solid community space.
They also do like farmers markets. Like they have like an open area in the front. They do farmers markets. In the summer, they do kids programs. They do. There's a true community kind of like center.
It's hard to figure out what it is, but yeah. I mean,
but it's not like that. It's not like the Y. It's like a very stylistic.
Oh yeah, it's very stylistic. It's got all the wood and it's that very modern, chic, industrial sort of. Well, because
it's the Cooperage.
It's the Cooperage.
That's why they meant Cooper.
It's the Cooperage. Yeah, it's a barrel. So essentially, they've designed the building. It's brick. It's a brick and barrel looking building. It's beautiful. So and it pretty much lends itself nicely to anything that really wants to go there. So I'm really excited about going there for the first time. And
the community was great because when I did Fourth Wall, being as a little bit of a distance, and they had other stuff going on, so we couldn't. Not like a normal theater production where it's like, even if you're using the space, usually it's that week of, you go in and you have a space. We didn't have that. So trying to get a mobile set, local businesses were great, and they donated, furniture that we can use for a set. I give mad props to Kevin at the Cooperage because I didn't know how to construct flats and keep them standing and lighting, and he was wonderful. He got like right on board and enjoyed it. So yeah, I can't say enough nice things about the Cooperage. It's a beautiful drive. It's not that far. People are like, oh.
People act like everything's too far. If you live in Scranton, Wilkes-Barre is too far. Vice versa.
Oh, I know. Don't cross the county border.
Just bring your own beer, by the way.
Oh yeah, BYOB. So
BYOB.
Even better.
Stop at Beer Boys.
Go to Beer Boys, get your crowlers.
Yep, and then head on up.
Which is actually pretty clever. I never heard of the crowler before.
It's just the right amount. For two people,
So what would that be considered, like a 6-pack almost?
No, this is like 32 ounces.
Oh,
so
you're
figuring two pints.
No, they don't look.
I'm now having the North Slope Orange Crush. It's very good, by the way. And
I'm
gonna jump on that one next.
So yeah, let's.
It's like the one podcast I watched not too long because I'm a podcast fan, and I stumbled upon Get Doug with High. Did you ever hear of it? With the one comedian, Doug something or other, and he has his guests and he smoke weed. Basically, he just likes to cripple his guests. He doesn't even inhale the weed. It's real funny to watch. You're like, that he's not even fucking inhaling his weed. But he just lets the guests get crippled, and whatever comes of it comes of it.
That's perfect.
That's awesome.
I remember like Kathy Bates got high with Snoop Dogg.
Oh my
I
god.
saw her doing an interview, and I'm like,
I love Kathy Bates and Snoop Dogg.
Well, I did get a thing from the Pennsylvania Cannabis Festival that does the thing at NEOG every year. They want to come on the show.
Fucking yes.
So
yes.
So we might have an interesting show that week. You should definitely check that one out. We'll let you know when that comes out.
They don't fall asleep on the job or something.
Well, it was funny because like when we used to do the show in Scranton. We did it maybe their first or second year, I think. We had them on, and they brought this guy, and he didn't say anything. He just kind of hung out or whatever. I'm like, oh, who's your friend? And he's like, we picked him up on the way.
No.
He was a hitchhiker, and I'm like, you guys are the fucking epitome.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you were playing around. No, like you can't.
This is a stereotype.
You live the lifestyle. Like, holy shit! You just picked up a hitchhiker and brought him
I
here?
haven't seen a hitchhiker in 20 years, and of course the hippie's like, "Oh shit, yo, a hitchhiker, man." I really haven't seen.
Isn't it like a modern like hippie now? Like
There is.
is that possible?
Yeah.
Can you modernize hippie?
That's
probably-
Sure.
vanlife.
Yeah, exactly.
Probably
It
makes
is.
sense.
You half-ass
It is.
hippie, because at least with hippies, they might have been lazy, but they lived in a time where their cause was worthy, and they were all very, political and
Right.
into it. But there's something about those people nowadays that's sort of half-assed. They don't really follow through, which is why it is nice to see the young kids and
More like
and
posting
Florida
on
doing
Facebook.
that.
You don't have to
Right.
research it. You just
No.
share it.
Instant. Like, here's my opinion.
And it's too easy to give an impression over the internet of who you are and what things are, and when in reality it's completely different, which
Right.
plays into what you guys are talking about in the show quite a bit. Now, having played these characters, did it give you a new appreciation for millennials, or because some people like I'm technically a millennial, but I don't really consider myself a millennial. There's another term, zennials, where you're in between Gen X and millennial, because I lived without the internet for a good portion of my life and stuff like that.
So
So
my television growing up, we didn't have a remote.
Right.
We got a remote. It was like a big.
so you can't say that we're millennials too. Like so I like that term because it kind of bridges the gap in between there. So did it give you a different perspective of those?
For me, it's like, because they grew up with technology.
Right.
Or like the next generation, like they grew up with technology. Like I can remember, like, oh my God, when like Beta and VCR came out, I was so freaking out that my parents were going to pick wrong. Like we would end up with one and then the other one would survive.
What'd you go with? Did you go
They
with
went with
VHS?
VCR.
Oh,
so we were
good. All the good porn's on Betamax, by the way.
But like,
If you still have a player out there.
hope it doesn't break. But yeah, I remember like kind of like, when you would leave your doors unlocked, like that more simple romantic kind of like thing. Whereas they grew up with it was always the next thing, and I appreciate and I find it endearing that they want to return to that simpleness of not having all the stuff. And I think because it was that generation too, where they didn't have, you're coming off generations that dealt with depression. So like they were like,
Sure.
My grandparents were like always that scarcity consciousness, and then my parents like grew up with that, and so then they were like, I don't want my kids.
Well, see, that's what happened, because they're saying
And
now.
so I'm going to give them all the video games and players, and so that craving to return, but then still needing that validation.
Right.
Which, from like a theater perspective, I totally appreciate.
Yeah, but that's in a controlled environment where it's like, all right, but
My whole thing for doing theater was like, I did it in hopes that people would tell me I suck and to stop.
Well, stop being good at it.
15 years later,
What do you want me
stop?
to? Well,
But I'm still waiting for
there's something they about the millennials. The millennials are constantly being blamed for just being ill-informed, lazy. But finally, I think it was last week, someone brought up the fact that baby boomers were just bad at parenting. So it was nice to see that shift, like the blame to shift from the millennials, who were just the product of baby boomers, who were bad parents because of, their parents who were just trying to it all comes from trying to shield the next generation from the things that hurt you, and then but what do you get?
Where does it end, though?
Right.
Because, like, obviously, like, you know, you get to a point, like, obviously, I want my child to have a better life than I had. I had a great fucking life. So how much better can his be? And obviously, I hope that he would want his children to have a better life than he had. But like, how do you get to that? At what cost? You know, at what cost?
It's all perspective.
Right.
Wow.
As to what, like, you know, what I think is pretty shitty is somebody else's. That's a picnic.
Well, that's like music.
Yeah.
It's like they thought Elvis, like, look at him and his devil music, and then it was like, then it was our parents in rap, like, look at them and their devil music, and then like I wonder what's gonna be our thing where we're like, that's the most terrible fucking song I've ever
Kanye
heard.
West.
Kanye West, easy. Whoa.
So I don't know. After New Vintage's Fringe Show last year, I do have an appreciation for it.
Yes, that's true. That was a.
It was a good
retrospective.
take on it.
That was a good. That was a good show.
Oh yeah, the one at the Cultural Center. Yeah, definitely interesting. You know, and definitely opens you up to new ideas, which I think is a good portion of the point of theater. You know, is to let you into other people's lives.
And I think that's what I liked about. I kind of found it very thrilling about doing a show was that, you know, I didn't care if people liked it. I kind of, there's a part of me that was kind of like, I kind of hope somebody doesn't like it. Because that meant they, like, you know, they were tuned in and they were watching it and they were observing it, and I always like that adverse reaction because it intrigues me.
Yeah, it's designed to do both. It's designed to repel and attract, and both functions are equally as important. Because I've had a few shows where I've had people walk out, and but more people stayed than walked out. I have had a show where someone was wheeled out. No, really, that's true.
In a wheelchair or what?
Or they,
Yes, it was a. I don't
they
know.
assisted.
I've gone too far, Jack. I can't say, but yes, someone was wheeled out of one of the shows I wrote. I can't say on the air, but somebody was, yes, wheeled out. It was a one-time thing, and what we were saying was pretty abysmal to begin with. But
I love the show that you directed, Beheading in Spokane. Because it was like one of those shows
I love that show.
Really
it was great.
you did see it.
I did see it. I enjoyed it. I
actually
saw the original production off Broadway with Christopher Walken.
No, you didn't.
And Sam
Really?
Rockwell.
Wow. Really?
Yeah, I you know, it was just a fluke that I happened to, I don't know what it was at the time that I had seen this, you know, an article about it or something like that, and I was like, wow, these tickets are dirt cheap for like.
Oh no, I do remember you saying
Christopher
it being that.
Walken,
Yeah, like, exactly. And like
it flopped.
like
the show
it flopped. It didn't do well, but it was such a good show, and I loved it. I loved the creator of In Bruges. If you ever saw that movie,
That's one of my
great movie.
Actually, nominated this year for 3 billboards outside of Ebbing, Missouri.
That's right.
He wrote and directed that.
Absolutely. So you know, a guy who's, you know, still relevant, who's putting great stuff out. You know, did this show, and you could see a lot of great shows that way. You know, I saw Crybaby a couple years ago when they tried to play off the Hairspray thing.
Was it a musical they made?
Yeah, it was a musical, and it was like, okay, you know, Hairspray did well. Let's try to turn another John Waters show into. And it didn't do that well, but I was entertained, and the tickets weren't that bad because it was, you know, a show that didn't really take off or anything like that. But it's a cool experience to see that type of thing. And to see actors that you would normally see on the big screen and stuff like that in a small role like that. So it was kind of cool. And it was, you know, I will say your production was so much fun. I enjoyed it just as much as I did the show with
because that's
with
what happened.
and
I read the
Rockwell.
script and it was hysterical, and I was like, yes, this is what I'm gonna do. And then I started seeing old reviews, and they're like, this show was horrible and it bombed and this and that, and I started to second guess myself. I'm like, no, if I initially read it and found it to be funny, you know, it's a good example of a show that drives people away and attracts them.
Yes.
Because there were some people who walked out of that one, but there were some people that found it refreshing to be able to laugh at. I
think some people are intimidated by like the small spaces and that type of thing. But I think that's what makes the shows even better. You know, like that type of show specifically.
It's really like my dad, because my dad is a good laugher. And
Yeah.
he'll laugh at a lot of things. So he's like an audience fluffer.
Like
he warms up the audience. Because if you get one person to laugh,
Contagious.
and then it makes it okay for everybody else to laugh.
Maybe I'm not as educated on this stuff, so you can correct me if you want. But in terms of Broadway, I feel like Broadway now is become Hollywood in the sense that it can only do well with franchises and names that people recognize, and anything that's experimental or different or whatever kind of gets shoved aside.
Yeah.
They don't have the ability to take risks.
Yeah, and I would rather see those types of shows. And so, not to say that the Broadway shows aren't surprising. Like my wife dragged me actually to Waitress because she's a big Sarah Bareilles fan. And I ended up loving the show. I thought it was great because I love musicals.
Those are like the best things, like when you go, like,
Yeah. And I was pleasantly surprised by how good it was and how well the show was put together because it was based on a movie. And I'm really against that, like, oh, let's just take a movie that people recognize and turn it into a show.
Yeah.
But it was a small enough movie that not a lot of people recognized that I think it could be good.
That was more
and
Ryan
it was
Reynolds, right?
written with original music. No, that was a different movie. I know which one you mean.
Because I know the play you're talking about, but I didn't know where it came from. Exactly.
Yeah, it was a small movie, but I remember it because at the time I used to work at a Blockbuster, so we would get all the anything that came to video, we would see it all the time, and see the covers over and over again. So that would kind of made me aware of this thing, but it was just a small movie that didn't really do much, so I didn't really think much of it. But then Sarah Bareilles wrote all this original music for it, which I think is the key. A lot of this stuff now is like the jukebox musicals, where it's like, okay, let's just take a bunch of songs that are completely unrelated, like a bunch of ABBA songs, and put them into a movie.
A completely
which is great, but
unasked for a sequel that nobody said they wanted to fucking see, with Cher as grandma.
Because the
Who
first
fucking
one
cares?
was.
I
Pierce Brosnan,
hate.
he looked like he was having the time of his life.
Yeah.
Hungover
Little
every
pitchy
day.
dog.
I can't stand.
I'm so against that kind of stuff, but it's cool that people are still doing these small theater things. You're taking you took a show that was not well loved on Broadway, but I think needed its own niche.
Well, good thing I found it
its
that
audience.
way, because if I had found it the opposite way, I would never have done it. If I found the reviews first, I'd been like, But someone handed me the script first. I'm thinking like, this is fucking hysterical. So I don't know. I think it might have just been the wrong timing on Broadway, or wrong casting, or wrong anything that made people shy away from it.
Back from like the economic stuff where it took a big hit, and so it became a thing of let's do the sure things of
exactly. Let's do
bring
stuff
people
like
in.
Lion King or whatever. People know what that is.
They killed like 5 Spider-Men.
Oh my god!
Because I have a friend who works on wardrobe for different things, and he worked on Spider-Man before he went on to Addams Family. He's like, we've killed like 4 Spider-Men already.
And obviously, I'm an adamant superhero guy.
No.
I was like, fuck Spider-Man the musical. I never want to see that. I hope it bombs. I hope it fails. Stop doing that stuff. Yeah, exactly. I mean, they did Superman the musical many years ago that people forgot about. Terrible as well.
Wait,
like, stop doing that.
Superman?
They did Superman the musical like a long years
It's
ago.
like the third Hulk. Like,
Yes. Please,
eventually,
please, stop it.
Or at least, stop it. Yeah, insulting the intelligence of the people who
Right.
are supposed to be buying tickets. Like, you know what they really need? They're dying for Mark Ruffalo. Been dying for him since Hulk 2. Where's Mark?
Since Edward Norton.
Oh.
All right, so to wrap things up, we want to talk about very quickly that arts funding is in danger. It's always been. It's always a problem. It's always something that the arts face, and I think it came to a head with the Scranton Fringe thing, which made the news. And I thought it was such a to be fair, I think it was a little overblown by like the Scranton Times and guys like that who they did 1,000 articles on it and editorials and everything else, and it's like, okay, we get it. You guys don't like Laureen Cummings. Yeah. Nobody does, but very few people do anyway. So we get it. But she essentially said that she didn't think the arts tax is worth it, which is funny because a year before that she said, "Oh, I think the arts tax is okay, but I don't like certain things being funded with the arts tax." Then it became, "I'm completely against the arts tax," and all that kind of stuff, which works out to Lackawanna County is kind of an interesting little area because it. We do, a lot of other areas don't have this little tax to fund arts programs, but I think it makes the Scranton area pretty unique and progressive in the sense that it works. It's $1 so it works out to about $12 per single family household.
Right.
So like dirt fucking cheap.
Yeah.
Not something that's really breaking anybody's bank. And it brings all the festivals that people love and take for granted to the area. A little bit of it goes to all the things that you love in downtown Scranton, all the things that bring the city to life are funded by this tax.
A lot of people think of it as like theater, and that's...
Yeah, and it's not just theater.
But I was at the grant ceremony,
yes.
And there are so many other things that benefit from it.
Right.
For every... the Ice Festival that I saw all over Facebook, which was great, and there was a Clark Summit, that got help from those grants. There's
right.
there's so many things. There's a woman who's very beautiful. I've never taken dance lessons with her. She was putting together and something for people who might be into opera or want to experience it, but not
right.
go to New York to see it. There was a guitar festival. There's something with the instrumentals. There's so much that encompasses, and theater gets.
I felt personally singled out, to be honest.
She did name the Scranton Fringe Festival by name.
Right. What happened was they had a meeting to sort of announce the allocation of funds and the people who were getting funds and this and that. And when it got to the Scranton Fringe Festival, she had some choice comments. And that's how that video was sort of shared and passed around, was, hey, check out what she said about you guys.
Right.
And it was sent to me, and I watched it. In the initial post, the person they're like, start at 50 minutes and so seconds.
Yeah.
But I didn't see that, so I watched the entire thing until it got to us. So I think maybe in seeing the whole first 50 minutes and how asinine and not unimportant, but just everyday Joe Schmo sort of activity was going on, money for spraying the mosquitoes and money for this, just weird things they were saying that they were giving grants for, and it got to us, and all of a sudden she had this gripe,
right?
Here's where I want to put my 2 cents in. And it's like, really? And she was misinformed. Basically, the whole mission behind the Fringe Festival was bold, uncensored material in the sense that it can't be tread on by other people. It was just it wasn't it's not filthy material. A Fringe Festival's it runs the gamut of local bands all the way up to Russian acrobats coming to your town.
Sure.
And she made it seem like and painted it as a the Scranton or the children's library was doing rated R shows, and she sort of made a mishmash of different things and
right.
represented the Fringe Festival in that manner, which made me all of a sudden get really protective over it. And then there was a whole debate back and forth between her and the entire local arts community, which didn't really end all that well for her, considering other people also get really defensive of their arts programs and things like that, because we all sort of have a sense that this stuff is really important because it shapes us as young adults, and it forms our opinions later on in life. The arts is
it's also a reflection. It's a history.
Right.
It's a history marker.
Sure.
You look at paintings, you look at sculptures. It's a true reflection of the community, the society at that time. It's a snapshot of it that I think people miss, and I think it's kind of a lot of things that we were saying about rushing through life to get to what end and that, and taking those moments to realize what's going on. And I think she got, because of it said that it was uncensored. That's being wow, being as it's inviting all this inappropriateness and
but
that's what it was all about.
What if it was? Even if it were, who gives a fuck what Laureen Cummings has to say about that anyway? Because that's the importance of protecting those things, is because we rely on that stuff, and we need that stuff as human beings to be reminded of ourselves. This is, theater and arts. It's pretty much there to be a reflection of the times, and if it's not there, or if it's you try to censor it or snuff it out, then what does that say about you? So what are you trying to hide, or what is it that you don't want to be reflected at that time?
And and it makes you question, well, what is her real motivation here?
Right.
Because a lot of and she is absolutely included in this. A lot of politicians now talk in that dog whistle sort of way, where it's like, I'm not going to say I don't like this group of people, but you know who I'm talking about, wink to the camera. And there's a lot of that going on, especially, she is a huge supporter of certain politicians who love to do that kind of thing. You can go to her Facebook page and you will find all of those types of things, and a lot of the stuff that we said before, conspiracies and all kinds of other overblown stuff from bad sources. So having that mindset, it makes you really wonder why she was trying to find something sinister in something that's not sinister at all. At the end of the day, this money, even though the Fringe Festival overall might have performances that she might not like, this money in particular was going to children's performances at a children's library that is completely safe for anybody to go to.
And it was unrelated.
Completely unrelated.
Those children's that programming was unrelated from the Fringe, and she really did try to confuse people by muddying the waters.
Yeah, I think so.
And that's why I think everyone took such a heated stance towards it, because it was sort of fighting dirty.
Yeah.
In a way, it's like, oh, well.
And it's a good thing that in this case, I don't know how much you follow this type of thing, but in the county commissioners, there's 2 majority commissioners and a minority commissioner. So the 2 majority usually vote together. The minority usually votes in there, except for little things like this here and there. So the minority commissioner doesn't have a ton of power, but that can easily switch at any time. We've had 2 majority Republican commissioners before, and we've had 2 Democratic commissioners many times before. So it can switch on and off depending on the election year. And we get sick of one party, and then we put the other party in because we think things are going to change, and then nothing changes. So then we switch to the other guy and back and forth. So right now, yes, she doesn't have any power, and everything that she said was completely useless because it didn't matter. She was going to get outvoted anyway. But at the end of the day, who's to say that not, a couple of years down the road that it doesn't change the other way?
Right.
So you can't, we do have to take that stuff somewhat seriously. In this case, you can't take her too seriously because of the way that she said it and the uninformed way that she put it and everything like that. But who's to say that she doesn't get more power at some other point, or that this doesn't lead, a lot of these guys, they just use this as the launching pad. Okay, now I can become a state rep from here, and so on and so forth. And you get more and more power as you go along.
Person from up the line.
The
Senate.
Resist.
But I will say, and that's the thing is, I want to give much credit to the people that, like myself, who I love the Fringe, and only this year was my first week involved. I loved that seeing the arts, of not being a sports person and that, because sports is always given priority.
Absolutely,
and
especially in our schools.
Not to say that it shouldn't be, but just that image of you're not a sports person. That's where the priority. I'm like, I'm not athletic. I'm not competitive.
No.
I'm not coordinated. For me, it was a home. But I want to thank the other people who have the Scranton Fringe Festival has become a part of their community, and that they were so impassioned about standing up for it, which I think was a very beautiful thing. And I love that. Kind of there's that balance of and not to say those people, their voices shouldn't be quieted either. Just because they don't like what's going on at the Fringe Festival, that's a valid point. And to be okay, well, maybe this isn't for you. It's kind of like parent controls. You don't go. There's a rating system for all the Fringe shows. Don't go to those shows.
And there are,
But that's an untapped community of maybe doing stuff that is geared towards them or something that they would like. Maybe if we reached out to be okay,
sure.
What ideas do you have? What of a meeting in the middle? There's so much room for opportunity.
We draw too many lines without looking at the other side. I mean, a lot of which I didn't know until I started covering county government, years ago as a reporter. But they go to church groups and things too. Well, as a guy who's not religious whatsoever, I could stand up and say, "Oh, well, I don't want my money going there," and that sort of thing. But if you look into it, you go, "Okay, well, you know what? They're doing something good for the community. This helps people out. This makes people feel good. All right, I'm not gonna fight that." So it goes both ways.
Yeah, there have been a lot of churches that have helped theater groups that haven't had a home to be like,
Exactly. Yeah, come
our
here.
space. And
Is it also frustrating though? Do you ever feel that no one supports you guys as much as they should until someone is like, let's take it away?
Right.
Because everyone's like, I feel like they get so vocal about it when it actually matters and it's almost too late, rather than beforehand to
That's
support.
human nature. That's
Well, no, it is.
yeah,
No, it
until
is.
you
But
talk,
like,
until you talk
but
to me
it's-
personally, it's
but it's
then-
that's but then the person who's not ever supportive at all is the first person to raise their arm and say I support this. And but what have you done prior to that? That's
Right.
kind of fucked up.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
How many theater shows have you gone to?
It's those
And
people
I-
too that
I'm-
say that then there's nothing going on.
And I'm
There's nothing
guilty.
to do.
No, and I'm guilty. I'm not. But I'm not a huge theater guy. But I would never say get rid of it.
Right.
Right.
I would
Because you
never.
recognize like, okay, just because it's not for me.
Right.
Right.
But I'm also saying like just those people who are the first person to kind of like share that shit on Facebook, but they don't do shit to help, or they didn't do anything prior to that. Like it's like having like, well, this is wrong,
It's a Facebook.
but
post.
never have anything. But never have a solution to help to try to fix it. Like
Right.
this is wrong.
Okay.
Well, how do we fix it?
Right.
Well,
Well, that's why I think
Yeah.
it's up to everyone to protect their own thing, so we could all respect that. You stand up, you protect the things that are important to you, so other people could realize, like, oh, well, that's important to them, and then they could relate it to what's important to them.
Yeah.
If this were to be taken away from me, I'd be so pissed. So I think that's where the outlying support comes from for people who, didn't say anything before. It's just out of, they could relate to something equal being taken away from them and how they would feel. Something that was important to them. And, I mean, we all have that something that's,
Sure.
would set off that alarm in our heads. Like, no, defend that. That's yours. And, but, yeah, too little, too late is such a
Those are things for
human
granted,
flaw.
I think otherwise.
Yeah,
you
until...
make a good point. Yeah, you're right.
I mean, I don't know though. Yeah, because there are certain things like Kimmie was saying before. It's not my thing, but power to them for that's the best we could do.
I think it's kind of in a larger perspective. I think what we're missing is that like people could have opinions and ideas and not agree with you, and that's okay. So you could keep on
Right.
like there's a lot of things on Facebook. There's certain groups and stuff like that where I'm
Yeah.
torn between like. God, there's just nothing but negativity on here, and it would start with stupid, and I'm like, but I don't want to leave it because then I'm like this, and then, but
Yeah.
like you could just scroll past it. Like,
Sure.
You don't have to feed.
You don't have to comment on every single thing
Into it,
and,
right.
and get into a fight every time.
My favorite thing is it's like a business that's closing
Yes.
that you haven't been to in 5 fucking years.
Yes.
But their last day, I gotta go. I gotta go and support them.
Well, my community is so hurt by this. It's like, when was the last time you went? Like, it did anything to support this?
Had you gone like once a month
Yeah, exactly.
in the past 5 years,
Right.
you would have made a difference.
Do you-
Going now when it's closing, you're just trying to like take your fucking photo, check in. Like I was there for the last fucking day. Like eat shit. Like
Yeah.
Right.
all
Like,
lessons
no,
to be
no.
learned.
So, in other words, in conclusion, go support shows like this.
Yes.
Go
I know.
support.
Listen to NEPA Scene and
yes.
find out what's going on.
Absolutely.
support local radio.
Yes.
Yeah, I missed out.
Which,
You didn't.
and he has a great show with great local music that you can listen to every single week. This is stuff that
Saturday
is
night.
produced right here in northeastern Pennsylvania that people just take for granted, and then when it goes away, everyone cries. So please come out and support this kind of stuff.
That's
Give it a
the thing.
chance.
That gets me. I was like, man, like people when they finally do come to a show that I've been like, just go, like,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
whether
yeah.
I'm in it or not, they're like, wow, there's some really talented people around here. It's like,
Go figure.
I told you.
I had a good time.
why is it so hard to
I
believe?
would say doing that show on Saturday nights at 9,
Yeah.
Alt 92.1, is my favorite hour of the work week, and I don't get paid a fucking dime for it.
Exactly.
That's it.
Just goes to show you.
That's my husband says to me all the time. He's like, because I'll come home from like rehearsals and just be aggravated. He's like, why do you do this again? Not for van life, but yeah, some other things. I'm like, it's fun.
Because I love it. Yeah, of course.
Because I'll die knowing I did this.
Yeah.
So see, hashtag vanlife. It's at the Cooperage in Honesdale, March 2nd and 3rd?
Yes,
March
sir.
2nd and 3rd, 8 o'clock.
8.
Doors open at 7:30. It's
BYOB.
BYOB. Stop at Beer Boys.
Mm-hmm.
It's a suggested donation of $10 in advance, $15 at the door. Info at cooperageproject.org for reservations. And give us feedback, because then a month later we're
Going to
hitting the
Pittsburgh.
road and we're going to Pittsburgh Fringe,
So yeah.
representing NEPA there.
Cool.
Awesome.
Well, good luck.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks
guys
again.
for being on.
Thanks for having us.
And thanks for the support.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And continued support.
Please share this. If you got this far, you must have enjoyed the show. So please definitely share this with other people. Let people know to tune into the podcast every single week, Wednesday 7 to 8, right here on Facebook. And then afterwards, it's available everywhere: YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, wherever you consume podcasts. We're here. So thank you very much for tuning in.
Thanks, Cole Creative. Thanks, Beer Boys. Thanks, V Spot.
Yes.
Is that it?
Here, here.
Yes. That's
All
it.
right, That's it.
Have a good night.
Good night.